Hello, and welcome back to the dining room for another lens shootout. Because last week we looked at the new, relatively new, Sony Power Zoom 10-20mm G lens, which I bought on sale for about $500, about $50 off. It's the Sony holiday sale. Check my video below about holiday deals. And we compared it to the new, well, again, relatively new, the Sony 11mm 1.8 lens and the Tamron 11-20. If you were a vlogger, the Sony 11mm was the clear winner. Well, why am I telling you that? Just go watch that video. But then I realized, wait, I have another set of lenses that I can compare this Power Zoom to and might be of some help to people. And that is, again, lensrentals.com to the rescue. It's so handy having them just a couple of miles away. The Sony 15mm G lens, $650 on sale, so it's a little pricier. Basically, they're the same price, $650, $650 roughly. But the other one I want to compare it to is one that you will be well familiar with, possibly from this channel, but definitely if you watch Mark Bennett's Camera Crisis, because it's the Sigma 16. 16mm f1.4. It's a fantastic lens. Again, I will link to Mark Bennett's video down below, but he swears by this lens. He uses it in almost all of his videos. I use it in a lot of my videos. It's a great, great lens. So I said, well, how does that stack up against the new 15mm from Sony? And by the way, oh, here's the rub. $650 on sale. $375 on sale. I think $450 is the list price. So it's like $200 less regularly, and right now it's like almost $300 less. So let's see how this stacks up. Right now you're looking at me through the Sony 10-18, the older lens that basically this new Power Zoom replaces, or also f4. It's very much like this lens. There's one big difference. You can put it on a full frame camera and not go into APS-C crop mode, and the lens will work as long as down at 10, it's got a vignetting around the edges. But you bump it up. Right now it's on 15. I chose 15 in honor of the new Sony 15 and the Sigma 16, so you kind of get an idea of what they all look like. Size-wise, the Sony 15, not quite the smallest. The smallest one is the Power Zoom, the 10-20. It's 2.75 inches and 6.3 ounces or 178 grams, whereas the Sony 15mm G lens is slightly longer at 2 5/8 inches and slightly heavier at 7.8 ounces and 219 grams. So the whopper is the Sigma 16, which is 3.63 inches, but that's not the problem. The problem is the 14.29 ounces, over double the weight of the Power Zoom and almost double the weight of the Sony 15. 405 grams. This is a heavy, big, bulky lens. There's a reason for that. Metal. These two lenses are plastic. Even the little rings are plastic. This is a rubber ring on a metal lens. So it feels better. It has more heft to it, a lot more heft to it. That's the downside. But it's well built, and again, Mark Bennett uses it. I use it. It's a great lens. Now, the minimum focus distance on it, however, is 9.8 inches, whereas these two guys are both 7.9 inches minimum focus distance. So you can get a little closer, a couple inches closer with these guys. And then the angles, the Sony 15 is 87 degrees. The Sigma 16, being slightly longer, is only 83.2 degrees. And of course, the Sony 10-20 goes from 109 to 70 when you zoom in. And then for the filters, the Sigma 16 is another 67mm filter size, which is the same as a lot of my other lenses, so I can, move ND filters around and great. Whereas the 10-20, this power zoom, is 62 millimeters, so a step up ring would work. And then the Sony 15 is 55 millimeters, so it's a little bit off. They all three do autofocus, and none of them have in-lens stabilization. So it's a fairly even playing field. Let's look at them. So the A7C is going to go away and going to be replaced by the FX30. Well, let's start with the power zoom. So now we're back with the power zoom on the FX30. Let me get out my little trusty. Oh, and I have it zoomed to the middle to 15 millimeters because we're going to be comparing it to a 15 and a 16. I figured let's make it a fair comparison. And again, from the lens to my nose is almost exactly 2 feet, just like last week. It's right in front of me. And it looks okay, but again, it's again f4 throughout the zoom range, which means my ISO right now is at 800. And that's with, you know, lights, although there's not a lot of sunlight because it's another rainy day. So, but that's not too bad. Again, f4 works great if you've got a lot of light. If you don't have a lot of light, not so good. Which we'll discover. We're going to go outside in a minute. So this was the power zoom. So this is the Sony 15mm G lens. Again, 2 feet away, right in front of me. We've got a fair field of view here. Not spectacular, not like the 11s, 10s and 11s from last week, but decent. It looks pretty good. So this is the 15. And now you're looking at me through the Sigma 16. Again, well actually, a little closer than 2 feet because remember the lens is an inch or two longer. So this is more like 22 inches from my nose. And by the way, to compare over here, we have the Sony 20mm full frame lens, G lens. It's almost 32 inches away from me. I have it in APS crop mode because it's farther away. Well, anyways, this is Sigma 16, again, a lens which Mark Bennett uses in his studio and which I have been known to use. But we don't really care about it in here. What we care about is what it's going to look like outside. And again, you don't have to walk with me, we'll just pop outside. So when we pop outside, since the 16mm is on the camera, we'll come back outside with the 16mm. So now we're outside with the Sigma 16, which again is an F1.4, which means right now my ISO is at about 100. By the way, this is the exact same time of day as last week's video, although it may be slightly darker because of it's again raining. There you can see what it looks like. I tell you how good the bokeh is on this baby. I can see it in the little tiny screen, and usually it's hard to see that. So this is the Sigma 16. Again, I have my elbow touching my side. If I hold it out, I can get a little more. But it would be a decent vlogging lens. Not a great one. That's that Sony 11 from last week. That's the perfect vlogging lens for an APS-C camera. But this isn't bad, and it also works better as a studio. Well, let's try another one. This is the Sony 15mm f1.4. And again, ISO 125. Again, it's afternoon, but nowhere near sundown, but we do have the clouds and the rain. And you can see I can see on the little screen. Oh, of course I can see on the little screen. This is the FX30. The FX30 has the 2.3 megapixel flip out screen. And you can really see stuff on there. Including the rolling shutter, as I just turned around. But not bad. Not bad at all. And now we have the F4 10-20mm G lens. And by the way, F4, my ISO is at 1000. Because it just doesn't let in enough light. And even on the little tiny screen, I can see if I have any bokeh back there, there's things may be in focus back there that shouldn't be. We'll swing around and put the light behind me, and yes, my ISO goes down, but also my face isn't very well lit. It's not really picking up my face. Well, here. Well, it ran the ISO up to about 1400. 1250, it's bouncing around. Now this, by the way, this is at 15 millimeters. We can zoom on in, that's 20. And then we can zoom out to 10. So, again, as a vlogging lens, having the flexibility to go from 10 to 20 would be a big advantage, except for that F4. Because, like, it's daylight. I mean, cloudy, overcast, rainy daylight. And my ISO, it's hitting around 1000, flipping between 800 and 1000 right now. So, not a great vlogging lens if you're ever going to be in any kind of lower light. Now, broad daylight, this would be great. But not for this. And again, you won't get the fancy bokeh. So we're back inside. I put back on the Sigma 16 because, quite frankly, this is the lens I would recommend. For the price, it's f1.4, so you get a little bokeh in the background. It lets in lots of light. It's $200 less regularly, and it's almost $300 less right now. Sigma 16 is pretty good buy. So yes, it is bigger and heavier, which we established earlier. If you want to be a vlogger with an APS-C camera, like the FX30 or the ZV-E10, which by the way I would recommend the ZV-E10 over the FX30 because I've just been hauling this thing around on the switch pod, and it's substantially heavier than the ZV-E10. So if you're going to be a vlogger, I would look like at the ZV-E10 and that 11mm Sony from last week. But if you can't afford that many lenses, or that many cameras for that matter, I would recommend the Sigma 16. Because it's, as you saw, it's decent for vlogging. Yes, you don't have quite the, well, you're looking at it right now. It's 2 feet from my face. Which one did you like the best? Again, the best buy is the Sigma 16. If you're worried about stuff like chromatic aberration and pin cushioning and all those kind of things that like photographers care about, that because I'm not a photographer I don't really care about, again, I will link to all of Mark Bennett's videos below on these lenses so you can go see, you know, the spec, the more detailed stuff where he goes in and looks at, you know, are the colors right, and a lot of reviews of all three, the power zoom and the 15mm and the 11mm, all complain about distortion that you have to correct because they're wide angle lenses, so you get a little distortion. Again, for video, this isn't such a big deal, but if you're a photographer like Mark Bennett of Mark Bennett's Camera Crisis, notice I don't say his name rudely anymore because he's made me buy so many nice things. I would not buy this 15mm. Well, why would I buy the 15mm Sony when I have the 16mm Sigma? They're both f1.4, and that one, well, that one's free. The Sigma's free for me because I already paid for it. So this would be like another $650, which there's no way I could justify that when I have a perfectly good lens of almost the exact same focal length. And I bought this, which was probably a mistake looking back, but you know, if you're a camera person, acquiring lenses, it's like it's an obsession. I have to have it. Now that I have it, I don't know if I'll ever use it that much, but I have it. The 10 to 18 that this replaced. Well, they still sell it, but I mean, it's basically this is the replacement for it. Again, you saw on the A7C, that was at 14, ultra wide angle. It's amazing. So, and again, I'll link that video. There's a video where I looked at that. So that's the lens shootout, the 15/16mm lens shootout. I think that the Sigma is the winner for almost everything except size and weight. And so if you're a gimbal shooter, maybe you'd want to go with this. Although, if get the 11. Go watch last week's video. The Sony 11, now it's 1.8. Of today's lenses, I strongly recommend the Sigma 16. And if you go watch Mark Bennett's videos, which I will link below, he also strongly recommends the Sigma 16. So you might want to think about a Sigma 16. And pass on this. So that's our second lens shootout. Much faster than the last one because I'm kind of getting the hang of it. Unfortunately, I'm out of lenses to shoot at each other. So I guess we're done with lenses for a while. Yeah, I've said that before. You know I'm a liar. Big fat liar. I can't help myself. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for stopping by. Bye-bye.